Do I really believe that I'm powerless? Do I believe my life is unmanageable? Do I believe that my primary purpose is to be of maximum service to my fellows? Do I believe that I have to go to AA for the rest of my fucking life and sponsor all these women and answer the phone and interrupt my family and put my family last? And I started to say, no, I don't believe that. I worked in substance abuse treatment. I sponsored women. I lived it for so long, and I'm free, and it feels good to be free.
Hello and welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. My name is Kirsten, and I am super excited you are here today for this great episode we have with Carrie. Welcome to the
Thank
podcast.
thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, I think just from the start, I would love to hear about how long were you in AA and how long ago did you leave?
Okay, good question. So I started in AA in December of 1989, when I forced my then husband to go to treatment because I was convinced that he was the problem, and if he got better, I'd get better too. So he went into treatment in December of 1989, and he's been clean and sober ever since. I've been in AA since 1989, but during the 36 years, I've had two relapses, one in 1993 and one in 1999. So I've been sober since September 17th of 1999. The last time I got an AA chip from my sponsor was on my 22nd birthday, sobriety birthday, which was 2021. And then I went to one meeting after that in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and that was in November of 2021, and I haven't been back.
Wow.
Right.
Congratulations on your
It's
escape.
been an ordeal. It was not something that I did suddenly.
Mm.
It was thoughtfully. I contemplated leaving for a year. I looked for resources on how to leave AA. I couldn't find any. I couldn't find anybody to talk to for a long time, people who had left AA. I felt like I was alone and I was scared. And I hadn't always, and I want to say that I like the scientifically based language that you use. And I've adopted it as my own because I didn't have a language. I didn't know how to put into what was happening to me. I didn't know how to put it into professional words based on research. And so I was a true believer at the end. I was heavily possessed by the AA ideology. And I truly believed that to even think about leaving AA was meant that you were in self-will, and if you're in self-will, you're going to drink, and if you drink, you're either going to end up in jails, institutions, or death. And I've heard a lot of people say that. I've heard you say it. That's what I believe too. But the truth is, I resisted the AA ideology for years and years and years. I found soft AA. That's what I'm going
Mm.
to call it because those people kind of managed to truly take what they want and leave the rest. They didn't really talk about the big book. They didn't really make you work the steps. Nobody said you were going to die. I found support, friendship, people that listened to me, women that wanted to help me, unconditional love. I found a lot of that in the soft AA in my area. And I live by the capital of Iowa. So there's a lot of meetings, big AA here in Des Moines, Iowa. And but eventually I got into hardcore AA, and that's where I really got indoctrinated. That's where, and it was because I was just feeling so desperate. And I had resisted. I felt like it was a cult from the beginning. I felt like I didn't want to get religion. I didn't, and I always had a lot of self-will. And what sponsors would tell me is, Carrie, you have just enough character defects to be attractive to the newcomer, and therefore I can bring in more people and indoctrinate them into the program. Um, I was also told that I couldn't remove my character defects, that only God could do that. And so I was told that the ones that I still had were useful to others. So that's why God didn't remove them. So I was sarcastic, judgmental, but I'm also very kind and compassionate. And the women liked me And I loved them. I mean, I loved that connection with the women. If I miss anything, it's that.
Mm.
If I could take AA and take out the dogma, take out the you're going to die, take out you have to do this for the rest of your life. I was told, Kirsten, that I had a screw loose, and I always would, that my head, well, and I've heard you say this too, that my brain is a dangerous neighborhood and I dare not go there alone. That if I'm thinking, I'm behind enemy lines and I better get out of my head. All that stuff, I eventually just surrendered and bought it. I
Mm.
bought it hook, line, and sinker. And boy, do I feel scammed
Mhm.
knowing what I know today. Totally scammed. Like I wasted a lot of time. But like I said, if I could take the good stuff, the fellowship, the camaraderie, the connection, I loved. I mean, I have, this is my big book with my 22-year chip here. Every year I can change that. This is my second big book, highly written in, highlighted, marked, phone numbers. It's like a Bible. There's little notes in here. I mean, this is my second big book because the first one fell apart
Mhm.
because I turned into a big book thumper. I believed it. The first 164 pages were golden. That was the truth, the light, the way, and that's what I told people. You know what? I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed about the way that I talk to women.
Mhm.
When I got into hardcore AA, I spouted the rhetoric. I said things that I'm not proud of, because those were the things that were said to me, and I really thought I was being helpful. I thought I kind of had to tear you down to build you up. You know, I believed that your best thinking got you here, and that if you really, really wanted to be sober, you would do what I do. And if you didn't want to do what I did, then you didn't really want to be sober.
Mm.
So you better do what I tell you. I mean, that's how I was treated in
Mhm.
hardcore AA. That's not how all my sponsors were because, like I said, I was in soft AA in the area for a long time, just with loving people, people who cared about you and didn't drink. And that was good until I just got so desperate. And I think for me, a lot of my desperation was emotional regulation and relationships. I have childhood sexual trauma and I never dealt with that. And when I got into Alcoholics Anonymous, I just wanted to be loved. I wanted people to see me, to hear me, and I got all of that in AA. But I never dealt with the core of my issues, which probably I could have left AA a long time ago or never gone at all.
Mhm.
Because I know that I used drugs and I drank to stuff down my emotions, to feel normal, to not think about what's the things that had happened to me. And I met so many women along the way that had the exact same story as me. I never met one woman my whole time in 36 years of going to Alcoholics Anonymous that hadn't had some type of sexual abuse, sexual assault, some type of domestic violence. They just get there. They're so, like me, I was so broken, I would have probably done anything. But like I said, I resisted for a long, long time until 1999, and I relapsed for one night of drinking over a relationship that ended. My motto used to be under every skirt is a slip. And, some old guy said that. So I adopted it as my own because my primary relationships are with women, but never with a woman that wore a skirt. So that was never really even appropriate, but that's what I said. And so in 99, I thought, I just have to do something different. I have to do what I've never done, and that is surrender to sponsorship. And I picked a sponsor that I would never have picked ever because I knew she was a big book thumper and I knew that she was going to tell me what to do a lot. And I thought maybe that's just what I need. And so I got a sponsor and I went down that rabbit hole of call me every day. You will show up for sponsorship meetings. You will sponsor as many women as you are sober. You will never say no to an AA request. You will do service work at the meeting level, home group level, district level. You'll do everything. You'll go to the prisons, you'll go to treatment centers. And I did all that. I mean, I became a walking billboard for AA. I love to speak. I love to tell my story. My home group was 300 people. I could tell the story, I could tell my story and, hold people in the palm of my hands. It was a high. Telling your
Mhm.
story in AA is a high. Afterwards, you get so many accolades, and people say things like, "Oh my God, you're the best speaker. You could go on the speaker circuit." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, bring it on. I'm going to go on the AA circuit speaker. That's what I'm going to do." I mean, I just, for a long time, for so long, I drank the Kool-Aid.
Mhm.
And then once I figured out that I was drinking the Kool-Aid, I just could not swallow another drink of it. I had to get out. I didn't know how. I didn't find you and your podcast, well, until you started it. And I've been on this journey of deconstructing and leaving AA since, I left in 2021. And what I found first was my daughter. Uh, she would often say to me, "Mom, why do you still go to AA?" She tried to go to AA, and she's like, "I'm not doing that. I have a son that's long time clean and sober. He wouldn't go to AA. Neither one of my kids drink, and neither one of them go to AA because of what they saw me having to do they grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous. They grew up in church basements and conferences and potlucks and picnics, and their dad is in NA and AA. So they didn't stand a chance. They grew up in this. They didn't want anything to do with it. Thank God our children are smarter than we are, because I I just got hooked, hook, line. I never, ever, ever planned to leave. I couldn't imagine my life without AA. I would say, AA is not my life, but it's my way of life. I stole that from somebody else. I have no original thoughts in AA. They're all stuff that people have put in my head, and that was one of them. Then that daughter, my oldest daughter, she gave me a book, and it was a book written by a local author who had been a substance abuse counselor and then wrote this book because she had seen how AA was so disempowering for women. And so she gave me the book, and it's called Recovery, A New Story. And this was the first time, because in the opening of the book, she says, and I'm like, I about fell off my chair when I read this: "I am no longer a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have withdrawn myself from the fellowship. I have transcended the program and believe that it no longer supports my evolutionary process." Okay. And I'm like, I never heard such a thing. But she's the one who got me thinking that maybe I could leave. She does go on to say that she still drank the Kool-Aid. I mean, she redoes the steps so that they're more friendly for women. Instead of taking away our character defects, we release them. She makes everything more modern and better for women, but she still believes that millions of people are saved by Alcoholics Anonymous, and she still believes that AA is a good program. And that's not her fault.
Mhm.
I mean, I've just come to realize it's just what people believe until they don't believe it. And how are they not going to believe that if nobody talks about it? I know I have a lot to say, so thank you for listening. I haven't had anybody to really talk about with this, you know. I mean, I'm the person in AA. I am the elder in AA, and I left. And people were afraid. I had a friend on, and she's a woman with more sobriety than me, like maybe twice as much, old timer, funny, modern, can be raunchy, good friend. When I wrote 3 articles for Substack about leaving AA and I posted them on Facebook, she unfriended me. And she more or less said, "Why do you have to do this? Just go away quietly. Just leave quietly. Why do you have to talk about it? Why do you have to like say it's okay?" You know? And I know that there's people out there that are saying things like I would have said. I'm praying for them. I'll be praying for them. I'm saving them a seat. I'm going to save you a seat. Okay. And also, I know they're saying Carrie is in South Will Run Riot. She is self-reliant. She is being self-righteous, self-centered, self-seeking, and pretty soon she's just gonna explode. And she's gonna go down and drink. And who's she gonna take with her? Don't hang out with her. Don't talk to her because she'll take you with her if you do. I mean, I was conditioned to believe that people who left AA, that you just didn't want anything to do with them
Mhm.
because they would take you down because they were like crazy. Like, who's going to leave AA? And the truth is, in the 36 years I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, I probably sponsored, I don't even know, thousands of women. I know like a handful that are actually still sober. I'm the only one who stayed in AA. They all left and did something different. One person died, but she also
Mhm.
had a heart condition. So nobody, I just know like one or two people who actually left AA and drank and died. I know people in AA who died and who drank and died who were still going to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm ashamed at the way that I would talk to people about, what they have to do and what I think they need to do. And, you know, and I can't change that today. And even just the other day, one of my old sponsees still highlights my hair, and she's kind of in, kind of out of AA. She knows where I'm at. And she said, well, AA saved my life. And I said, well, did it? And she's like, I don't know, but that's what you told me. So, and I'm like, I'm sorry that I told you that. But I did tell her that, I did tell her that. The other thing that I've done is I'm a retired registered nurse, and I worked in substance abuse treatment. And I worked for the I worked for the VA hospital for 32 years, and I worked with veterans that were in a substance abuse treatment program. And what are my qualifications? Well, I'm a nurse and I am sober. That's all I have. And these are men and women who have been in the military, been in battle, and they have post-traumatic stress disorder, some of them. And I'm telling them to surrender their will. And eventually I figured out that you don't talk to soldiers like that. In battle, you tell a soldier to lay down their weapons. So I would say you got to lay down your weapons. And what are your weapons here? Your will. What are your weapons here? Your ego. You got to lay that down and surrender and find a higher power that can solve all your problems. And that's what you got to do, guys. And I know that there were men and women in those meetings that wanted to shoot me because, like, what do I know about anything? And, you know, I thought I just thought I was hot shit. I really did. I'm not like proud of that fact, but I thought I had something that you didn't have. And when I got in the hardcore AA, Kirsten, then I was very much an elitist
Mhm.
because we had the best meetings, the biggest meetings. We dressed up for our home group. We had a language, a specific language that identified us everywhere we went. Hello, my name's Carrie. I'm an alcoholic. Sober today by the grace of God, AA and sponsorship. And then we'd say our sobriety date. So everybody would know that you're part of that group, which was an offshoot of the Clancy group. So we were very, very elite, and we did what we were told. And the other thing about that is I was always told that you get a home group, and this is what I told the women I sponsor too. You get a home group, you get a service position, you always show up for that meeting because that way if you're in trouble, someone will reach out to you. Never happened. Nobody ever reached out to me. I came and went and nobody called. I mean, it's just a lie. A lot of that stuff is just not true. The bottom line is I've been fired as a sponsee twice in my lifetime. Once was when I wanted to get involved with somebody that my sponsor didn't want me to get involved with. And she said, if you go out with this person, then I can't sponsor you. And so she fired me because she didn't like that person. And the next time was when I was very sober, long time sober. And now I'm with the hardcore sponsee. And I was being what I know now sexually harassed at work
Mm.
by a woman that came to work there, and she was a social worker. I couldn't get away from her. I was like trapped in this, and it was just a big long story, and I was very, very vulnerable. And my sponsor's like, you have to stop seeing her, or you have to quit, even entertaining this. And I said, I'm trying. I mean, I needed her more at that time than I ever needed her. And she fired me. I mean, she said, I can't sponsor you. And then she told all the women that I sponsored to let me go too. So now I don't have a sponsor. I don't have the women that I sponsor. And I felt very deserted and afraid. And I, found other meetings, but I was like, what the hell? She let me go at a time when I needed her help the most because I wouldn't do exactly what she wanted me to do. And she said, you're not sober and you're going to drink and I can't sponsor you. And I'm like, I'm not drinking. So that is still a really triggering situation for me. And I went back to soft AA in my area. I stepped away from the hardcore, and in the meetings I talked about it. I was deconstructing AA in AA meetings, and people were looking at me like, I'm sorry that happened to you. We don't do that here. We don't do that here. And I know that that's not necessarily the truth. They still talk about you have to find a higher power. They still talk about if you drink, you're going to die. And more than anything, they still say that AA has to be your primary purpose. And your primary purpose is to be a service to other alcoholics. And you can't leave AA. I can call it soft AA, but they still were spouting the rhetoric right and left, right and left. I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent, but I'm just so passionate about this topic.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. It's understandable how you feel. There's a lot of us that feel that exact way.
I just feel scammed, Kirsten. A couple years ago, I got scammed trying to buy a dog on the internet, and it went on for about 3 weeks. And I was so excited. I had videos. I imagined this dog in my home. I fell in love with the dog, and I gave money, and then I didn't get anything. And I thought, how could I be so stupid? I ignored the red flags, and I got scammed big time. Couldn't do anything about it. And that's how I feel now. I feel like I got scammed for the last 3 decades
Mm.
in Alcoholics Anonymous by people who I loved and trusted, who I'm not saying they're bad people. They've just drank the Kool-Aid. They don't know what they're doing and they don't know how harmful it is. Even the woman that wrote the book still subscribes to the AA ideology. She just wants to change the language, which, God forbid, you change anything in that first 164 pages of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been on enough district committees and, to know that we've talked about that so many times. Somebody wants to change something. We're not changing nothing. No language can be changed. And people would say to me, just change it to he or she, or just ignore that, or just, set on that, pray about that. Just pray about, make your God bigger. God's not big enough. You just got to make God bigger and bigger and bigger. Also, they would say, and this is something I still struggle with. They would say, that you have to put God first, then AA, and then your family. God, AA, family. And what I was told is that whatever I put before God and AA, I would drink. And then I would lose whatever I had put before God and AA, whether that be my family, my job,
Mhm.
my life, my livelihood, whatever. And so I just believed that. And I know today that it's not true. I know today that it's not true. And I started to journal in 2020. I started to journal about, well, a belief is just a thought you keep having. And so I'm like, do I really really believe the stuff I'm thinking and spouting and spreading around? Do I really believe that my first thought is wrong? Do I really believe that I'm powerless? Do I believe my life is unmanageable? Do I believe that my primary purpose is to be of maximum service to my fellows? Do I believe that I have to go to AA for the rest of my fucking life and sponsor all these women and answer the phone and interrupt my family and, put my family last? And I started to say, no, I don't believe that. I mean, even a river changes its course eventually. Why am I still doing the same thing? And the other thing is that I believe that what our thoughts create our reality,
Mhm.
and I think that's what got me going the most. It's like, why do I continue to create this reality where I am broken, where I am forever diseased, where I'm going to die if I drink, all that stuff? Why do I keep creating that in my life? And I'm like, I don't want to create that. I don't believe that anymore. I believe in manifestation. I believe I have a higher self and that I can do whatever I want and that I'm in charge of my life and that I make decisions, not somebody else. I got in trouble one time because I didn't call my sponsor because when I bought a new car. Did you ask me about that? Did you want to, because I should have talked to her about my finances before I bought a car. And I'm like, fuck that. I mean, I've always been a rebel. I've never really got it, but I just didn't think I had a choice. I didn't think I had a choice. I thought, I have to do this. And I've been so conflicted for so long about having to do this.
Can we go back a little bit? I'm so curious. How did you start having the questioning your beliefs? Like, so before you left AA, you're questioning your beliefs. What happened that had you start to create, wait, do I believe the powerlessness? Do I believe forever recovery model? Did something happen that made you start? Was there a moment or did it just kind of organically go?
Well, here's the deal. This is what happened. I had a sponsee, love her to death, but she called me every fucking day. Like she couldn't fucking do anything without calling me. And she was one of like 10 women that I was sponsoring. And I just got burned out. And so I started to kind of like back up a little bit. And then the pandemic hit. And, I always went to 3 to 4 meetings a week because I was told 3 to maintain your sobriety and 4 to grow. So I always went to at least 3 to 4 meetings a week. Well, during the pandemic, I started doing Zoom meetings and I could do 1 or 2 meetings a day. So I just like, one time I decided I like lemon yogurt. So I ate so much of it, I made myself sick. That's what I did with AA. I just got sick of hearing the same thing. My favorite meeting on Zoom at that time was this women's meeting based out of Chicago, and it was huge. And there was a lot of really amazing women in that meeting, but they all had the same message. They were powerless. Their life was unmanageable. They know they're going to drink and die. And I just thought, no, I just started questioning that. No, I don't think you will. And I also started to say, that my job as a sponsor is to shine the light of my experience on your path and give you the grace and dignity to find your own way because I just refuse to tell people what to do. After I got fired from the hardcore AA, thank God, now it was a blessing, then I knew I had to be more realistic and I had to critically think. I think that's what started happening after I got fired. I started to think, what have I done? I mean, talk about leaving a cult. I had to really, I was sad, I was depressed, I cry at meetings. I was like, what's going to happen to me? What am I going to do now? And that began it. And then during the pandemic, I journaled, I went to lots of meetings, and I just started journaling and asking myself these questions. And then my wife and I decided to go away for 6 months and take our camper and go to the Southwest. And I decided to take all of my journals that I had and take them on this trip and look at them line by line and ask myself, do I still believe this? Is this what I really believe? Not what I've been told, but do I believe it? And and then also I told the women I sponsor, I'm going to go on sabbatical. I'm not going to be available. I'm going to be off grid. You can't call me. So you got to find somebody else to sponsor you while I'm gone. I told my sponsor I'm going on sabbatical. Everybody's like, what the fuck is a sabbatical from AA? And I'm like, I'm just going. I'm not going to go to meetings. I'm not going to take a phone call. I'm not going to talk to you guys. I'm not going to do it. I was so ready to take a break. And that was during that time in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I went to my last meeting, and it was a small meeting. It was a women's meeting. And I sat there and I knew I was done. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm in my head. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm never coming back.
That's so
I'm never coming
interesting.
back.
It was so similar for me my last 6 months. My health was I was struggling with my health and I had just moved. I was living on Bali and I had moved kind of far away from the meeting, like 30 minutes, and it's all on a motorbike and traffic. So it is kind of a little bit far to go 30 minutes to the meeting. And so because my health was down and because I was further from the meeting instead of being like 5 minutes away, I started going less. And just like you, when I was not being indoctrinated every day, either but through my own
Hmm.
mouth of indoctrinating others, then I'm getting that message too, or hearing it, that's when my
Yes.
critical thinking was activated more. I was like,
Hmm.
wait, what is this thing? What the hell is this?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Same thing here. It was kind of the same way in that sexual harassment at work. I wasn't able to get out of it till I got away from it. And maybe that's the way it always is when you're sucked into something sick. And it wasn't until I started thinking critically that I started to back away and back away. And then, like I said, I read this book and Holly gave me permission to leave because she'd left. And then I left and then I didn't drink and I didn't die. And I actually love my life. I have time for my family. My wife and I moved out in the country. We live on 17 acres. We have a couple dogs and a cat, and I don't have to go to town every effing day and take and answer a million calls. One of the big regrets I have is my kids who grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous because I didn't put them first. There were
Mm.
many times where they begged me not to go. Just stay home, mommy. Don't go to the meeting. And I'd be like, hey, mommy's better when she's going to AA, so I gotta go. And they didn't understand that. And I was not a good mom in sobriety because I didn't put my kids first. I just didn't. I was taught that you just have to put your sobriety first. And I regret that so much. And I regret that I gave that message to other women. You got to get a sitter or find something or I'm sorry that it's their graduation. You made a commitment. You have to go to this. You can't go to their high school graduation. I mean, talk about hardcore crap that I would spew in the name of sobriety and saving your life. I just believed you're either working on your recovery or you're working on a drink. That's what I was told, working on your recovery or you're working on a relapse. You're going to relapse, Carrie, because you're all in your head and you're doing the stuff you want to do. And you can't do what you want to do. You have to do what we do. Um, so yeah, it's been that's been one of my biggest regrets if I could go back and do it differently. Obviously, getting clean and sober was beneficial for my kids. Obviously, they had a better life when I was sober, but I still wasn't present and I still wasn't a good mom to them. I mean, I wasn't the best mom that I could have been because I was always gone. I was always gone. I was on committees, I was going to conferences, I was going to retreats, I was meeting with the women I sponsor. I brought questionable women to live in our house when my children were young more than once because they needed a place to stay and I felt that was the right thing to do. Bill did it. Bill and Lois had people drunks come and stay at their house, so I did it too. And fortunately nothing bad ever came out of that except my kids would look at me today and they're all adults and say, Mom, what were you thinking? Why did you bring that person in our home? I'm like, I thought I was being helpful. I thought that's what I had to do, and that was the right thing to do. And I probably put my kids in positions to be harmed, and fortunately, I don't think they ever were. So, but I have regrets about that. I have regrets about the way I sponsored. I have regrets not leaving AA longer or earlier than I did. But, I'm out now, and it's funny when I run into people. I haven't ran into a lot of people from AA because we don't run in the same circles anymore. But I have some friends that are still close to, that I'm still close to. And the other day, one of them said to me, I don't care what you're doing, I still love you. And I'm like, I don't care what you're doing. Even if you're in a cult, I said, I still love you. I mean, it's kind of like those kind of little cultish comments that
Yeah.
that they give us, like,
Yeah.
I still love you. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Or I miss you. I miss you. Well, I didn't go anywhere just because I'm still alive. I didn't
Yeah.
die. I have the same phone number. I live in the same, you could call me, but I know what they mean.
Or
They
we
mean they
forgive
miss me in
you. I've heard
AA.
that. We forgive you. I'm like, for
Oh,
escaping?
for what? What are you forgiving me for? I know. I know that they mean well. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you about was then later in my sobriety or in my leaving AA, my sister recommended a book called Cultish. I don't know if you've read it. It's by Amanda Montell, called Cultish. And this woman, she's a linguist, I believe, by trade, but she wrote this book because one of her best friends went to AA, and she hadn't seen her for like 3 months, and then when she saw her, this woman was saying all these things that she had never heard her say. In fact, the author's like, I could know what she was thinking and feeling by the sound of her breathing, and here she is saying this stuff like, I'm in a major halt, and we better just take it one moment at a time. And then she figured out that she had gotten this all this language in AA, and she was curious about why somebody as smart as her friend would get involved in a questionable culty program. So
Yeah.
she wrote a book and she examined all the cults, and it's a wonderful read that gives even more scientific research language to you know leaving AA and calling it a cult. There's just no doubt that it's a cult. A
100%.
religious cult. I
Yeah.
mean, there's 100%. I did not believe that at first. I would have told people AA was helpful, saved my life, even after I left. It took me a while to get angry about it. It took me a while to see it as something that I wouldn't want anybody to do. I was watching a series on Netflix or Hulu or something last night, and the very first thing is they're going to a meeting and you got to get sober, you got to go to AA, A is the only way. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't get away from it." And that's how AA indoctrinates globally, as you have said on your podcast. Nobody knows any better because that's what they see on TV. Those guys got to go to AA and they got to keep going to meetings, you know? And I just don't believe that anymore. And I preached it. I taught it. I worked in substance abuse treatment. I sponsored women. I lived it for so long. And I'm free and it feels good to be free. I Nobody knows what it's like until they do it.
Right.
Women have reached out to me and said, I'm kind of like, I'm so jealous that you've had the courage to do this because I've wanted to do it for so long, but I'm afraid to.
Yeah.
They're afraid to leave.
It's really scary. I think it's the scariest thing I've ever done. For me, it was harder to leave AA than to get sober. And getting sober was like the hardest thing I ever did at that time. But to leave AA was even harder because it wasn't just a step into the unknown. It was, I had the phobia indoctrination. I thought I was going to die. I knew all my friends were going to shun me. We know
Hmm.
we're going to get shunned if we leave. We're not dumb. We get that we're dangerous.
Nope.
And I also was
Yeah.
super emotionally dysregulated. Like so much was going on. I didn't know who I was without
Right.
the alcoholic identity. Is that even real?
Nope.
And I couldn't talk to anybody about it because everybody I knew was in the cult still. And so
Yep.
it was like so scary. I mean, that's what motivates me now. It's like the biggest problem I ever solved in my life was leaving AA, and I've had a lot of problems. And this one was just
Right.
because
Same.
nobody can talk about it. And the childhood sexual
Right.
abuse thing was similar in that nobody ever wants to talk about it, and then we kind of gaslight
Right.
ourselves out of it if it even happened or
Yep.
whatever. There's so much around it. But leaving AA is different because you have to keep it all to yourself, and anybody that you tell is going to gaslight you, like globally, society,
Right.
Hollywood, like you're saying, Netflix, wherever.
Yeah.
Everyone is saying it, and then the people that you knew from there that were your friends are saying, don't ruin it for the newcomer, you're killing people. And it just, the
Yep.
level of self gaslighting that I had to pull through, that I got to pull through as I left AA, that
Right.
was tremendous for me. So it is really,
Yeah.
really scary. And if anyone's leaving right now and they're scared, yeah, it makes sense. It's scary.
It is. It is. And I think that your podcast is a lifeline. And since I found your podcast, I found other sources that and other people who I'm not alone. And that is so affirming. It's good to know that other people leave and they don't drink and die, and that other people leave and they look back and think, how did I get scammed for so long? Why did I stay? Especially since I knew it was a call. I knew they wanted you to find God. It was all about finding God. Every time something would happen, they'd say, pray about it, make your God bigger. So you can't tell me it's not a religion. Who else would say that? I'm a nurse. It's not a spiritual malady, for God fucking sake. It's a substance use disorder. It's not, I would never tell somebody with a heart problem that you got to find God. Why are we telling somebody that has this problem to find God? Well, because of Bill. And I've never trusted Bill. And I loved the history that you presented about Bill. I mean, I know that they used to assign somebody to watch Bill at meetings because he was always hitting on the women. So somebody would get assigned to Bill. Now, why is that okay? What does that sound like to you? It sounds like something else that's going on in our world right now where men in power are getting away with a lot of crap that is just should not be tolerated. And we tolerated so much women in AA. And there's always those creepy men in AA that just hug you a little too long, that you avoid because you know they're going to get in your space and they're going to want to hug you and not let you go. And it's creepy. And I don't know how many times I've had to talk to men about leaving the women alone.
Mhm.
Men who should know better, men with lots of sobriety who are just getting too friendly with young women. I mean, like, what the hell? There's a lot of shit that goes on in AA that they don't talk about or want anybody to know about, or they just sweep under the rug
Yeah.
because it gives them a bad look. And they'll say that's an outside issue. Everything's an outside issue. That's an outside issue. My sponsor that fired me was a very devout Catholic, and she had a pro-life sticker, or no, she had a, yeah, pro-life sticker on her car. And I never would have ever chosen her to be, I'm a lesbian, I'm pro-choice, I'm like very liberal. But I did. And then I just got sucked into, and she was a wonderful person. Don't get me wrong. She also had drank the Kool-Aid. Her sponsor had even given direction like, you need to have sex with your husband at least twice a week, or at least give him a hand job or a blow job. Whoever says that? So that was like a general understanding. If you're married to him, that
I'm
you
trying to
need.
get sober. I'm just trying to get sober. What the fuck is this?
What does that have to do? What does that have to do with anything? But they controlled those aspects. To be a good wife, you had to submit to sex. I mean, how Catholic is that? Is that Catholic? I don't even know. But I got sucked into that for so long, and it's like, oh my God. And but then I'm still like must still be still indoctrinated to some extent because I think, well, yeah, but what about all the good things, Carrie? What about all the people that you helped or the people that helped you? So like I said, there is people, well-meaning people that do help you, but it's the whole dogma of you have to do this forever, and I was told I have a screw loose and I always will. Carrie,
Yeah.
you have a screw loose and you always will.
When I first said I left AA online, which was 5 years after leaving, I had people that I knew really, really well in AA that were friends that I hung out with outside of AA and stuff reach out to me, and we got on the phone or we do voice messages back and forth. And at first it seemed fine, right? Because I wasn't, but it was before I
Right.
recognized the patterns of people, how people in AA behave. Now, with pattern recognition, I'm like, there's categories of how they are, right? There's nice,
Yes,
nice with
yes.
control, and then the
Right.
manipulation, but it's all manipulative. It's only one person that
Yes.
I've talked to that's still in AA is not manipulative with me. Everybody else, and they kind of pretend at first, and I don't blame them because
Yeah.
I was in AA.
Right.
I understand that the
Yep.
ideology has us do that. But so it's oh, my AA is not like that. My AA, they'd say it's like the soft AA, but
Yes.
then all of a sudden they'd be like, but because my disease is da 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 da, and I was like, oh, and I'm powerless. I'm like, oh, this isn't.
Right.
Or they'd be like, And I could tell that they were trying to get me, you should come to my meeting. My meeting is better. I'm like, bro, I left five
Mm,
years ago. Like it's not even like
right.
I didn't say I'm thinking about leaving. I say I left 5 years ago and it's fucked up. Like this is a different story I'm telling. But they're still trying to like
Yes,
get me back in. And I
always.
understand that, but it's a lot. So I have a question. When
Okay.
you left AA, was it 2021?
I left AA in 2021. Yes.
Okay. So tell me about what it was like in the beginning when you left, when you were confident more or less in your decision. You had been critically thinking for a while. What was it like in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, I just kind of hid out. I mean, we had been gone for 6 months, and then when I came back, I told the women that I sponsored, I'm not coming back. I told my sponsor, I'm not coming back. And she said, well, maybe you shouldn't tell people you're not coming back because then you won't burn any bridges. You can still come back and you won't look bad. And I'm like, no, I'm not coming back.
But why would that burn a
And
bridge?
mostly, I don't know. She just thought I might be able to, I might feel more comfortable coming back if everybody didn't know I had left, I guess. I don't know. She meant well, but I'm like, no, I'm not coming back. And and I heard the same things you did, Kirsten. Just go to different meetings, go to less meetings, sponsor less meetings. That's not been my experience. I've never had that experience of being told that you're going to drink is to die, and I'm like, just because it wasn't your experience doesn't mean it's not real for me. But I heard that a lot, that gaslighting, that's not what happens. That's not what we do. That's not how we do AA. Take what you want, leave the rest, pick and choose. You don't have to do that. You don't even have to believe in a God. You can be an atheist. Like, no, you can't. I mean, we ran those atheists out of our meeting for sure. You can't be sitting there saying that you don't have to have a higher power because the whole steps are about finding a higher power, dude. So it was hard when I came back and I was mostly alone. I just um and I loved it. I mean, I'm not saying it was bad because suddenly I'm here, but I didn't go around where those people were. I avoided them like the plague. And one time I ran into the husband of my old hardcore sponsor at a dance recital for my granddaughter, and he just was so condescending. I mean, he didn't say anything about you're not going to AA, but I know him well enough. I know the look, I know the attitude. It was just kind of like, yeah, it was just patronizing and condescending. Um, and I just kind of had to just believe in myself and find other people. I mean, that's the thing I had to do. I had to find, I'm like, so now who are my people going to be? You know, now who am I going to hang with? I've only had AA friends since I was 29 years old, and I'm in my 60s now. So who's going to be my friend? And I had to find friends. Fortunately, my wife has friends that aren't in AA that are my friends. But I had to find people I could talk to that weren't going to spout AA rhetoric or tell me I need to get back to meetings or that I'm going to die, or say I miss you or I'm saving a chair for you or bless your heart. Um, and it's been hard, but it's worth it. I mean, nothing nothing easy. I mean, it's nothing easy ever. Oh, what is it? Somebody used to always say in AA, without the pain, where's the glory? So maybe I'm still spouting AA. Without the pain of leaving, where's the glory of leaving? How are you going to know that it's wonderful if it's not horrible first? I don't know. That's kind of what they said, to me a lot. Yeah, so it's just been a process of finding some new people. Trust me, for a while I thought I'm going to start my own meeting. I'm going to start I've left AA meeting and let's get together and talk about it. I'm going to start a support group for women who just want to talk about being a woman. I mean, but then I'm like, I don't want a support group. I don't want to go to a group anymore. I don't want to lead anything. I don't want to start anything. I don't want to do that. That's what I did for 36 years in AA was start things, go to things, develop things that had to do with sobriety. I just want to live today and, live my life and be present And that's what I've been working on. Working on, I like to write, and writing really helps me get to some of my truths. And I just say what's true for me today. And my daughter, who's like 44, she she's always been exactly the opposite of me, like, you know, free thinking. And I'm starting to listen to her because she has a lot of good ideas. And I'm like, why didn't I listen to you a long time ago? I should have been listening to you a long time ago. But
That's so sweet.
yeah, it's true.
I read your Substack. You came out of the I left AA closet on the internet, which is
Yep.
it's one thing to leave
Yep.
AA and to let people in AA know that you left, but also to come out on the internet is like another, it's not like a required step in deconstructing, but it is, for me, it was a huge step in deconstructing, was saying it out
Yes.
loud and then being met by what I'm met by, whether it's the love or the hate or everything in between. So what was it like for
Right.
you to post, to write and post that first Substack article?
I was terrified. Terrified. I'd been on a podcast talking about leaving AA like a couple years ago, and I said, I wouldn't let her publish it. I got panicked and I got scared, and I said, please, please just don't post that. And so she didn't, because I was so afraid of what people would think.
Mhm.
So it took me a while to get here. And so I was still afraid. And actually, it was kind of anticlimactic because nobody really said much. And in a way that I kind of suspected that, because the hardcore AA people were very much taught that not to get involved in any controversy. So
Yeah.
nobody was going to say, "Oh, you can't do that." Not publicly. Now they might if I ran into them, but not on a public space.
Mm.
Um, so no, nobody harassed me. Only one person unfriended me. Maybe more people did, but only one person told me that they were going to unfriend me, and that they had to. It wasn't that they wanted to, but they had to because of what I was saying. And other people came out and, like I said earlier, and thanked me for talking about it because they'd been thinking about doing it. A couple women said, "You did it, I'm going to do it." And so even if one person, now here's more AA in my head, if only one person gets sober from my message, if only one person leaves AA and and is free from my message, then my job is done, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like that too. I feel like if by being honest and sharing a bit of my story and what I found about deconstructing AA and the baloney that AA ideology is, that it helps people leave
Yep.
decades or years earlier, that's great. I wish
Right.
somebody would have done it in a way that I could have heard closer. Like I got sober in 2009, so, and went to AA in 2009. So if I would have heard somebody around 2011, 2012, I think I would have been able to hear them at that point. Maybe, I don't know,
Yes.
but I didn't,
Yeah.
there was nobody talking about it in a way that I could hear
Mm-mm.
really until well after I even left AA. But
No.
something inside me was like, well, when I saw that, I felt like it was, bullshit, like Santa. It was like, oh, it's not real. I'm out.
Right.
Like
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
My integrity wouldn't let me go back and talk about it. I was like, I can't ever go back because it's bullshit, and I don't do bullshit.
No. Mm-mm. I could never go back either. I couldn't say I'm an alcoholic. I couldn't say that. I just didn't believe it anymore.
What do you no longer believe that you used to think was true? What have you deconstructed?
Oh, that I have a chronic progressive disease and I'm going to die if I drink, or that my disease is doing push-ups in the parking lot, or that I have to spend the rest of my life in AA, and that the only reprieve for me is a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition, and that I have to pray and go to meetings and help others, all of it. I mean, it's just, I don't believe any of it today. And right behind me, I stacked all my AA books up there on my shelf that I've been studying for, 35 years. And it took like two books to get me out of that. So it's like I'm still hanging on to him, and I don't know why. I mean, Bill W., the biography of Bill W., like bullshit. Who cares about that? Language of the heart. the steps, uh, the home group, heartbeat of AA, drop the rock. I mean, I have all the books and I've passed them around and I've read them and I've studied them. I've been to book studies about them. And I'm just, yep, there you go. And I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Oh, Clancy gets what Clancy got well. I don't even know if you have that one. That's something that is old, Clancy got well. And like, who the fuck cares? If you know anything about Clancy, you would not fucking care if Clancy got well. But anyway, that's just as Bill sees it. Oh my God, let's just have a meeting and get out as Bill sees it and pick a topic. What the hell? Who cares how Bill sees it? I've been mad at Bill ever since he wouldn't let his wife write the chapter to the wives. I'm like, who the fuck are you, Bill? Your wife knows more than anything about what it's like to live with an alcoholic, and you won't let her write it. Talk about narcissism.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
And she has a disease of Alanonic because her husband's an
Yeah,
asshole. Like
right. I know. Yeah, I know. I don't buy that either. Around every alcoholic is 10 sick people. They catch the disease, they just don't drink. They need
that's
to go to Al-Anon.
bananas. So I dug up my original big book. I had a bigger big book because when I was in a cult within the cult, like a subgroup that was superior, like you talked to.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Woo.
we got the big book that had extra area in the
Oh.
margins, and we went line by line and wrote all sorts of things on,
Mm.
circled every word, looked them
Oh
up,
yeah.
like all that.
Yes.
Keeps you. I
Yes.
literally got carpal tunnel in that group from doing all the work that we. I'm serious, but I have this one. It's I don't know if you can see that. Stay for the miracle.
Oh, oh, stay for the miracle. Okay, so in your book, Kirsten, at one point they took out the symbol because somebody wanted to use it, the triangle and the circle and the triangle.
Yeah.
And so the women that I would sponsor, I would even make them, you have to draw it in your book and we're going to talk about it. Yeah, I mean it was hardcore shit because that's in the old books, it's not in the new books because somebody was using it and because we don't enter into AA doesn't enter into AA
Oh,
controversy. They just let it go. So they stopped putting that in the book, but it was just so important.
yeah.
AA and then the stuff around it and it was all part of the dogma and I spread it. Oh yeah, there you go.
So this is what my
Yes,
this is what
yes, yes.
so the Stay for the Miracle has a date. It's October 30th, 2009. That's the day I got out of rehab. Stay for the Miracle. And then these are my instructions on how to stay sober. Go to a meeting every
Hmm.
day, come early and leave late, thank the speaker, say happy birthday, give newcomers your number, get two commitments, call 3 women a day in sobriety, go to a women's
Yes.
meeting, do a step study, and do a big book study. I mean, if that's not enough, that's a
Yeah.
part-time job.
It is. I used to call that Recovery 101. When I would get a new woman that I would sponsor, we would sit down and I'd say, this is Recovery 101. And I would tell them everything you just said, except I would also tell them that they should stand at the door and greet people when they walk in and say, hello, welcome to AA. And if somebody's new, you go up to them afterwards and you talk to them and you give them your number. But more than that, you get their number because they probably won't call you. So make sure you get their number and then you can call them.
Recruitment.
So
You
yeah, oh yeah,
get them recruiting right away.
yes, I was a very good recruiter, very dynamic. I could have been a salesman like Bill,
Totally.
because I
Somebody,
sold a lot of people.
yeah, well, because we really believe in it, especially when we're in deeper in the more fundamentalist AA groups. So, what has been the
Mhm.
most surprising for you or the most liberating parts about leaving AA?
First of all, that nobody really cared. I mean, honestly, you get a lot of attention because you have a very public persona, or you're in the face of people who want to look at your podcast, but I'm not. I live a very low key life. I wrote three little Substack articles and posted them on my Facebook. So I'm not in the public eye. And so I'm not as much of a target. And nobody cares enough, I guess, out there about me after all these years to come and find me. And I'm not resentful about that. It's just the truth. Nobody cares that I left AA. That's what's surprising, that nobody chased me down, called me up, tried to talk me out of it. Nobody. And the thing that's surprising, and that's a good thing. I mean, I'm glad because I was ready. I was ready. I mean, I had a harder time coming out as a lesbian than I had coming out of the AA closet as being somebody who left. I mean, people then tried, they were going to send me, to hell or whatever. They were going to do all kinds of things. My family and friends who didn't agree with it. But, that was before Ellen. That was like 1990, 1990. So,
Mm.
we hadn't been desensitized to lesbians at that point. So coming out and saying I'm no longer in AA, and then even saying things like, you don't have to go to AA if you don't want to. There are other ways to get sober. I figured I would get more pushback from that, but I didn't. So that's been surprising. The other surprising thing about leaving AA for me is just how much time I have. Suddenly, my whole world is opened up. I mean, I have, if you have to go to a meeting in the middle of the day or in the evening, and I drive, and then it's late, and then, or you have to talk to sponsees, figure out when you're going to talk to them. And in my line of sponsorship, you sit down with your sponsees and you read together the first 164 pages with your sponsee. I had 10 sponsees at one time before I left. That's a lot of commitment. I mean, talk about free labor. You talk about free labor for AA. I should be able to get some retirement compensation or something after leaving. So it's been a surprise how much time I have, how good I feel, how I don't need a daily reprieve from drinking. I'm not thinking about drinking, but honest to God, even if I was thinking about drinking, I would never go back to AA.
Mhm.
I would just never go back. And I might even drink. I'm not saying I'm never going to drink. I mean, it's not in my plan. It's not on the table. But it's like it's also like, you know, I believe in neuroplasticity
Yeah.
of the brain. I think if you do something different long enough, you're going to rewire your brain. Right now, you and I are trying to rewire our brain from AA, but also all those years of taking different actions, my brain doesn't want to drink. I mean, it is a sober brain. It's a regulated brain. It's different. I'm not driving down those same old paths of I'm angry, I'm going to drink. I'm sad, I'm going to drink. Or I'm going to get you, I'll drink. I'm not feeling sorry for myself. You know, I, I just don't I just can't believe that I believed it for so long, and now I'm like, I wish everybody could just be free. Like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to go to AA. You can live a productive life. And maybe you can find your own purpose. What would you like to do? Maybe your purpose is helping animals or saving the whales or whatever. It doesn't have to be saving alcoholics. You can find something else to do.
Yeah.
You can find something else to do.
If you could go back and talk to your about to go to AA for the first time self and give yourself some advice at that phase, what would you say?
I would absolutely say don't go. I would say go to therapy, get a therapist. And I did have a therapist who helped me come out, so I probably could have gone to her for the addiction piece. But even that therapist said go to AA because that's what you do. You say go to AA. And I would, now that I know what I know, I would go to Smart Recovery. I would just not go to AA. I would not go anywhere where you had to give up your agency,
Mhm.
where you had to be broken down and then built up, or where, you had to surrender your will. I just wouldn't do any of that. I wouldn't do any of that. I might consider the Sinclair method, and I've always known about it. I worked in the field. I had patients on the Sinclair method, but I would not ever have considered it an option. In fact, I thought it was cheating. You're just cheating sobriety. You're getting sobriety, but it won't last unless you do that work with God. You're never going to get sober, even on the Sinclair method. And like, what the hell do I know? But that's how much of an elitist I was. That's how self-righteous I was about it. AA was the only way. None of that other stuff would work. And if you told me you were kind of going to a few meetings, but you didn't really like it, and that maybe you were thinking about, taking some medication that might help you drink differently or maybe stop drinking, or, I would be like, that's half measures. You're doing half measures, and half measures avail us nothing. you gotta surrender and do the whole deal. You got to do the whole deal or you will die. I mean, I believed it, Kirsten. I did. And I spouted it, spewed it all over people. I
Yeah.
know I hurt people. I had a sponsee fire me one time on the phone. She left me a voice message. Carrie, I don't like you. You think you're better than everybody. And I did. I mean, I did. We all did. In that group, we didn't say that.
Mhm.
But if somebody came to our home group to speak that wasn't a part of our home group, we all judged them. They didn't dress up. They didn't say the language. They didn't use the language. They didn't parrot their talk like we parrot our talk, our experience, strength, and hope. Maybe they went off on a tangent talking about their drunkalog, or maybe they got sober in a way that we don't agree with. They were not indoctrinated, and they
Yeah.
obviously were not as good as us.
I'm surprised that y'all let them speak because when I was in a cult within a cult, you were not allowed to speak in the meeting unless you had done up to a fifth step in the cult's special way of doing the big book, the big book. You
Oh.
weren't allowed to talk.
Oh, wow. Wow, you got me beat then. No, because we would have a speaker chair who would invite people to speak.
Mm.
And so we would get all kinds of speakers because it was a speaker meeting. Every week there was a speaker and there was like 300 people there and it was a different speaker every week. So we heard a lot of different stories and we judged them. It's like, yeah, they're not really sober. They're in that soft group over there. They don't do what we do. I mean, people never necessarily said those words,
Yeah.
but it was unspoken truth. It was just the way it was,
I get
you
that.
know.
I got sober in spent the first 4.5 years of my AA sobriety in San Francisco. And then I moved at 4.5 years sober, I moved to Bali, Indonesia. And I would call Bali soft AA. And I would call San Francisco AA, or at least the region that I was in, as like fundamentalist, hardcore
Hmm.
AA. And I didn't
Yes.
know there were two different things. And I struggled a lot in Bali, feeling like I was one of the only ones doing it right, kind of a thing, because we
Yep.
didn't we
Absolutely.
never talked about the traditions, or it was so loosey goosey.
Right.
The closed meetings weren't closed, and somebody would talk
Yes.
about drugs the entire time, or this or that. And I really felt like if I didn't say something, that people were going to die. I had this. I was emotionally like I was depressed. I felt like there was a burden on me because I knew how to do AA right,
Right.
and this everyone on the island was going to die because that I had to save them or something.
Yep.
And I didn't always come across as an asshole, but for sure there were times that I was the cult who won in the meeting, like
Yep.
but I was
Sure.
genuinely concerned for the well-being of these people in island. I called
Oh
it
yeah.
island AA, but I guess soft AA, same thing. It's like
That's
this
funny.
island AA, everyone's gonna
Yeah.
die, but they weren't all dying.
No, no. That is exactly what happened. So the first few years in soft AA, I just went to the LGBTQ meetings and they were soft AA. They didn't even read out of AA literature. They read out of some meditation book called Lavender Light. And so there was like a gay theme and they didn't I didn't know it when I was going that it was soft. I liked it because people just were friendly and we welcomed everybody and we talked about staying sober and what we're doing today to stay sober. We rarely talked about the book or the steps. None of that stuff happened there. But then I left, and when I got into the hardcore AA and came back, then it's like I felt like you, Kirsten. Like these guys are going to die. They do not know what they're doing. They are reading out of non-conference approved literature and they're not talking about the steps. Nobody is reading out of the big book. So I know, I'm sure they hated me because if I was chairing a meeting, and of course I was going to chair the meeting, and then we're going to do what I want to do. We're going to read right out of the big book. We're going to read out of the big book and we're going to talk about the big book. Enough of this fluffy stuff. I don't care how you're feeling today or, what you did yesterday or what you want to do, or I don't care about your relationship. I want to know what you're doing to stay sober. Are you carrying the message or are you carrying the mess? Very hardcore. So yeah, it's a burden. It's a burden to think you have to save a whole community of gay and lesbians from themselves. And now I think that is so ridiculous. Those people are so kind and loving. And the people I was in meetings with, they were so non-judgmental. I was judging them
Mhm.
in an LGBTQ meeting. How horrible is that? Because they just weren't doing it right. Once I got the once I figured out how to do it right, then
Y-
they were doing it wrong.
Yeah. I made amends. I made amends to all my sponsees that I worked with for over like a year after I left AA for bullshitting them for all the years that I did. I mean, when I left, I had one that I had worked with for 9 or 10 years. I was 10 and a half when I left AA, years sober. One for 5 years, another one for many years. And I just felt like I lied to them for years. Well, it wasn't lying because I believed
Hmm.
it, but once I realized,
Right.
so I made amends, and they had all left at that point as well. Because eventually, when I first left, they were being a little confused. One of them tried to rope me back in, and then then they started asking me slowly a couple over the months, like, "Why did you leave?" And then they all one by one were like,
Yes.
"Oh," and I was very non controlling, just kind of sharing why I left. And if they asked questions, would I
Hmm.
answer them? I was very hands off because
Yeah.
I felt so disgusted. Like I've been coercively controlling people, and I didn't even know it.
Yes.
And so I had
Didn't even know it.
yeah, I went through a process where I made amends, I forgave myself, I forgave the people who did it to me, and I felt like there was nobody to blame because even Bill was converted into religion by Ebby and the rest of the Oxford group. So
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
Bill didn't want religion and he was converted into a religious
Mm-mm.
cult. So it feels like there's no one to blame. It goes all the way back. Yes, take responsibility for,
Yep.
and accountability and all of that, but there's really nobody to be angry at. So once my initial anger and shock and all those exit trauma feelings subsided, I was like, it's
Hmm.
really nobody's fault. And if anyone's to blame, it's the people that are perpetuating it today. Not Bill, not what
Yes.
happened in the
Hmm.
30s, not what
Hmm.
Marty Mann did in the 40s.
No.
It's the people that are
Mm-mm.
currently lying to, that the problem is that we know better now. Bill and all them didn't know better back then. They didn't
Nope.
know about trauma, neurodivergence,
Nope.
any of this other stuff that so we know better now. And we have better methodologies
Yep.
to get sober now. We have great science now. It's always
Yep.
changing, always evolving. That's what I one of the things I love about smart recovery is that it evolves with science.
Mhm. As it should. I mean, as it should. What program does not change with the times? I mean, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a part of something that doesn't take into account neurodivergence or, any of those, anything. I mean, I know that I sponsored a woman in the 90s. I didn't know about neurodivergence, and I was a nurse, and I know that that was her deal. And I was so hard on her because I'm like, why can't you just say please and thank you and look at people? Why can't you just act normal? Why are you so awkward in a social situation? And she's a professor at a college now. She's very smart, but she didn't have the social skills and I didn't understand it. My own daughter may have some, I just didn't understand it. If you
Yeah.
didn't act like I thought you should, then you were just wrong. And I didn't know how else to deal with it. And I just thought I needed to change you. And today I'm just so much more accepting of people just being the way they are. And I think that's the only thing I can ever do is just love people where they are today and not try to change anybody. And I don't want to get involved in anything ever again. It's kind of like in the book Cultish, the author says that she talked to a Jim Jones survivor, and he said that a cult is like pornography. You'll know it when you see it. And that's the truth. You'll know what it is. You'll know a cult when you hear it. You'll know it when, you start to hear that language. And it could be anything. It could be a spin class. It could be, there's just always groups of people that want to suck you in. My aunt used to sell Shackley, and it was just, you just get into that mindset and you have a common language and you have to do what they do. And that's what AA is, and I just got sucked into it for way, way too long. And the only thing I can do today is just, I think, share my story and hope that maybe somebody's like, yeah, I feel the same way, Carrie, and I want to do something different. And I'm really happy that you're exploring some alternative treatments to AA because it's like that's what everybody always said. That's what I said. I don't know what else to do. What else is there to do? I mean, it shouldn't be on your head to do it, but I'm glad that you're at least exploring it because it seems like what people want to hear and need to hear.
Yeah.
And I've been asked that, well, if you're not going to go to AA, where would you send somebody? And it wouldn't be to AA today. It would be to Smart Recovery.
Hmm.
I don't even know if it would be to Dharma Recovery. Maybe, we have that here. Um, it would be to go to therapy, find a group of like-minded people, uh, do the Sinclair method. I
Yep.
mean, I'm honestly,
Yep.
that's totally what I would have done. Totally. And I can see how that would have benefited both of my adult children. How much that would have made that so much easier for them, and not so shaming, and not so, you know, they wouldn't have to label. I'm so sick of labels. I never want to have another label.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you consider yourself still in recovery now?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I feel like I recovered a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm not in recovery. I mean, I wouldn't even dare say that. People used to come into meetings and say, like, my name's Carrie, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I'd like, oh, I can't believe you said that. You're probably going to drink now because you are full of yourself. Because nobody has ever recovered. You're
Hmm.
always going to be sick. There's no cure. And how can you say you're recovered? Well, I know that I'm recovered. I feel like maybe I never even was an alcoholic. I don't even believe in that word.
Yeah.
I had a substance use disorder. It was more severe at times than other times. And a lot of it was fueled by untreated childhood sexual trauma and other traumas that I hadn't taken care of. And I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. Plus, I was in my 20s. Do you know anybody in their 20s that know what the fuck they're doing? Hell no. And that's why when all these young kids come to AA and say they're alcoholics and addicts, I'm like, I don't think so, guys. There's got to be another place for you to go and get stop doing what you're doing than AA, because you're you're just going to drink the Kool-Aid in your whole life. There was a woman in my home group, the hardcore home group, who got sober, I think, when she was 15. And she'd been there. She was like, I don't know. It was just like, I'm not sure that's necessary. But I know it's not for me anymore. That I'm recovered. I do not feel like I have a disease today. But they would say you have a disease that centers in your brain. Your brain wants to kill you, and it doesn't even know that if you die, it'll die too. So it was they were constantly training me that I couldn't trust my own brain,
Hmm.
that my brain was trying to kill me. Hello, that's so crazy.
It's 101 brainwashing. Get you to not trust yourself. Your survival depends upon the group. You cannot trust yourself. You have to like surrender to the group. It's baloney.
Right.
It's abuse.
You got drunk, but we get sober. You get drunk, but this is a we program, not an I program. Yeah, it's all that stuff is in my head. And I appreciate the fact that you've helped me deconstruct a lot of, and you've put words to what I was thinking, Kirsten, because like I all along, I mean, I knew this and I knew that, but I just didn't know what to call it. I didn't know how to describe it and to make sense of a lot of stuff. And you've really helped me do that. And actually it's been life changing and life affirming to find your podcast. So thank you for that. I mean, honestly, I didn't have a friend that I could talk to. I didn't have anywhere to go.
Mm.
I'm an old lesbian. I live in the country. I don't have, I lost all my friends because they were all
Mm.
in AA, and it can be lonely to leave when your
Yeah.
whole life was about AA. And that's where I got my feelings of my good feelings. I even I journaled at one point. Nobody commented on my share that they liked my share. Why is that? Why is that so important to me? Because honestly, if I went to a meeting and I shared something and nobody said something about it, then I thought, well, I didn't share good enough, or, this wasn't a very good meeting because nobody liked me. I mean, I love to speak in meetings and I love to tell my story in large groups because it made me feel special. But then AA says, this isn't even about you. You're not special. There's nothing special about you. You didn't do this, Carrie. This is none, you haven't done any of this. It's all about God. You can't take credit for anything. When I would get done speaking and I would go up to my sponsor and I would be like, I think that really went really well. And she's like, it was okay. But now you need to say, thank you, God. Hmm. Thank God for it. Thank you, God. So it's, I don't know if I'll ever get AA out of my head. And that's kind of sad. I may have to, I don't even know. I mean, I have a lot of years to get out of there, Kirsten, so I don't know how long it's going to take me to get it all out of my head. Honestly, I don't know.
Well, everything you just said was so moving for me.
Yeah.
I also really hear
You
the
take,
getting the ego, like feeling good and getting the ego hits off of sharing and feeling like, for me, I felt like my self-esteem became tied to my value delivered in the group. Like if the more service I did or the better I shared or whatever, there was sense like my value was based upon like being of service and out of self. So my value was
mhm,
based upon me abandoning myself essentially. And
mhm.
but at the same time, it was crushing my self-esteem slowly over time, like that frog in slowly boiling water, right? Where I didn't
Mhm.
notice that I was not trusting myself and outsourcing my agency and all of that. So my self-esteem is getting lower, and then my ego is almost getting bigger because it's validated on and predicated on being the one who knows, being the
Mhm.
one who's helping, being the
Yes.
one who gets to go tell the newcomer how it is or my sponsees or whatever.
Yep.
And so it kind of created this split. And that's what I see even now, 5 years out. I'm really looking at all that, like kind of bringing back that I'm valuable because I exist. I'm inherently valuable
Yes.
and it has nothing to do with what I give,
Yes.
what I say, what anybody else thinks about me,
Mm-mm.
or whether people
Mm-mm.
praise me or hate me or any of that. Like, none of
No.
that is important. And yeah, I just really related to getting like I guess an ego hit off of performative confession.
Yep. Yep. Totally. Totally. And I was fearless in my shares. I would just share stuff and people would be like, "You're so brave to share that," because I like the response. I mean, that's that's just the honest to God's truth. I I would always say that intimacy is into me see, and that when you share something really personal with me, it gives me permission to share something really personal with you. So I would share really personal things, and not to gross things or things that were really inappropriate, but I wasn't afraid to talk about my biggest fears, my most horrible times, things that happened, and I know that is not a bad thing when you want to connect with people, but it was not a good thing when I do it just to get that hit of validation. It was like I was always looking for that hit of validation. They validated me. I'm special. She validated me. I touched her. She validated me because she's had that same experience. Therefore, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And today, it's like, where am I going to get my validation from? Well, from myself. You know, I
Yeah.
can't get it from outside sources. But that's really what AA taught me. AA taught me that I'm only as good as my share. I'm only as good as my service work. I'm only as good as my commitment to the program. And nothing else matters. Nothing I do on the outside, nothing I've done. It's not me, it's all God and the program. Thank the program, thank God, and keep your head down, be humble, and have humility, Carrie. Don't brag. Don't talk about yourself, you know. And I got here with such low self-esteem, and I was so emotionally immature. I mean, I was in my 20s. So there you go. I don't know any 20-year-old that's not emotionally immature. And I don't even think that their cognitive reasoning has developed yet. And I know mine was very much delayed because I started drinking and using when I was 12. So, it's kind of like I've just had to reinvent myself, and it's exciting, and that's what I'm doing. This is all about me. This is not about AA, and it's not about what anybody else wants. It's just like, what does Carrie want? Who does Carrie want to be? You know, and it's liberating.
Mm.
It's very liberating.
I love that so much. That was the word that I clung on to my first year after leaving AA was liberating. I felt so liberated. I felt so relieved, free, liberated. I mean, there was a lot of feelings and it was scary and I was angry and I felt played and duped and all of that. So I had to kind of reconcile
Hmm.
that. But I felt so liberated. And like, who am I?
Mhm.
Like, who do I want to be? Like, who am I actually? Like,
Right.
because alcohol
Right.
regulated me, so I was dysregulated, right? So I think I'm prone to
Hmm.
dysregulation because of autism and ADHD. So I'm a little bit more hypersensitive. Therefore, the environment's a little bit more triggering for me, just in general, the sounds, whatever. And then I got childhood sexual abuse, right? Had a lot of that in my when I was younger. So that dysregulated me. And then alcohol was my self medication. And then
Yep.
I no more alcohol, and then I go to AA. And AA, I heard it sounded like you were saying this with how you were describing your relationship with AA. AA was my self medication. It I was regulating
Hmm.
my nervous system by my performance, my participation, my
Yep.
surrender and devotion to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that was giving my
Absolutely.
nervous system what it needed to stay regulated, whether it was
Hmm.
by sharing well or whether it was by being of maximum service to my fellows or whatever.
Yep.
So then leaving AA,
Right.
it was like figuring out how to regulate myself without Alcoholics Anonymous, because it was a daily reprieve for me in a lot of ways, because I was getting dopamine,
Hmm.
oxytocin, serotonin,
Yep.
all sorts of biochemical experiences through my participation in AA, not because I have a spiritual malady, but because literally connecting with humans and all the things that actually happen there
Yes.
make me feel good. So then it was like, how can I?
Right.
The goal isn't to feel good, but I do want to be regulated. How can I regulate myself without AA? And that took a little while for me to kind of
Hmm.
come into homeostasis after AA.
Same. Same. I've always practiced yoga. And so I just leaned more into that. And it was like meditating, breath work, being present in my body, all that stuff that, just being where my hands are and not trying to think about the future, what I'm doing or what I'm not doing. I totally agree that AA helped me regulate my emotions. I know for a fact that um, I was up and down in AA mood wise, depending on how much, how many accolades I got, how much people liked me. And I recognized, I journaled, that is just wrong, Carrie. What is this about? And and I would look around at old timers and think they're just getting off on the fact that everybody's like, oh, 35 years, you're so special, and so, I thought it was my ego. I thought it was more egotistical to stay in AA and continue to go around telling everybody how got sober. That felt more manipulative and egotistical than leaving. It just felt wrong after a while. It's like, what the fuck? I'm not going to keep telling you guys that. And plus, it was such an old story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, such an old story. Sometimes I couldn't even remember, like what did happen, that was a long time ago, so it's ridiculous. And the better your story, the worse of an alcoholic you were, the more things. I mean, I never killed anybody. I didn't get a DUI, I didn't go to jail. I did go to jail one time, but I didn't go to jail for drinking. I didn't do a lot. I didn't lose my job, but everybody would add yet. I would add yet. I haven't done that yet. I haven't done that yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I will. Obviously, I will if I drink. I'm probably going to do that tomorrow now since I'm not drinking. It's a yet,
Yeah, the yets.
the yets.
If there was one thing you wanted to leave us with, final thoughts, final words of wisdom, or anything you haven't said yet that you feel is an important thing you've learned since you've left?
Trust myself, trust yourself. You know better than anybody what you need. I mean, that's what I believe today is that nobody knows any better than I do what I need and what I want and what I should do. I might look for help and I might ask for help, but honestly, trust yourself. I mean, I've always been very intuitive, and I think that's why it was so hard at times to buy the BS in AA because I could see right through people. I knew they were just spouting rhetoric, but I wanted to be a part of something. Find something to be a part of that lets you be yourself. Find something to be a part of that empowers you and pulls you up and says that you can do anything, be anything, have anything. You could manifest and create the life you want. find something that's powerful and wonderful and is about self-love and not self-hate,
Mm.
or, you don't have to have a bunch of character defects, just be yourself because you're perfect just the way you are, just the way you are. If somebody had told me that, Carrie, you're perfect just the way you are, I probably would have left AA a long time ago. Nobody ever said that. They said you're broken and we'll fix you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're broken and you'll never be fixed, but we can be your cast for the
never.
rest of your life. Yeah.
That's right. Well, yep, that's right.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
And
Be yourself.
be
I mean, it's
yourself.
so like simple, but it's also so true. It's like it's what it is. It's be yourself and be around people that can allow you to be yourself and allow people to be themselves too.
Right.
And that's kind of
Just allow
love.
people to be themselves. Yeah. And really, I think that that's today. If I had a program, if I had any kind of guide that I was following today, it's about love, just loving myself, loving others, unconditional love, leading with love. Um, I mean, I said fuck a lot on your podcast because I still have a lot of resentments about some of the stuff that I was told by people in the program and some of the ways that they treated me. I had a sponsor that even went as far as to try to tell me I wasn't gay and probably I could like this guy that because he was handsome. He was gay, we were friends. I'm like, we are gay. We are not attracted to each other. But she couldn't understand, and her sponsor couldn't understand why we couldn't just make it work. I mean, talk about not allowing people to be themselves. Um, but today, I think that's just the most important thing is just to love and support people right where they are. And, you know, I used to be, my sponsor used to say to me, what was your part in that? What was your part in that? What was your part in that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I was a kid. Well, did you put yourself in a position to be harmed? Well, probably, but did I do it willingly, knowingly? No. I mean, but I had to look at a lot of stuff and look for my part when I didn't have a part, Kirsten. I didn't have a part. A lot of that stuff, I was harmed and it was not my fault, and it's not, if you've had that experience out there, it's not your fault either. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you had a part. You didn't. And so I've had to detangle a lot of that stuff. I feel like I got re-abused in AA
Mm.
by some people, by the language that they chose to use with me, by the way they chose to treat me, and the things they chose to tell me. They were unqualified to deal with someone who has had childhood sexual abuse. They were unqualified, most of them, to deal with somebody with substance use disorder. Just like I was unqualified to deal with patients when I worked in substance treatment. I mean, I was unqualified. Just because I go to AA and I'm not drinking doesn't mean I know a fucking thing about and I thought I did. So it's easy to get high and mighty, but just don't let anybody ever tell you that you're broken, and that the only way to fix you is a spiritual experience, and a big spiritual experience at that, a bright light. Or maybe it'll be of the educational variety. That's what I always said. Here's my educational variety. I just read all these books and then I had an educational spiritual experience.
Oh my God. This has been so fun. If people want to come find your Substack, do you want to give them a way to get there? I can put the link below if you want.
Sure. Yeah. I wrote those 3 articles. I don't know how many more I'm going to write. The thing about Substack is you need to be consistent and have writing if you want to have people. And I just don't know how invested in that I am, but you can sure share what I have written. And maybe if more people get interested, I'll be more interested in writing more.
Do you know the link off your top of your head?
They can go to carrieengland.substack.com. Carrie, Carrie, England, spelled like the country of England, .substack.com.
Sweet. All right. Well, we'll see if you are inspired to write more or not. But regardless, I really appreciate your honesty, and it was you're very engaging for sure. You have that gift of gab, and it was great to have you on the podcast and to hear your story and to chat with you. I really appreciate your time and your courage to come out with your story.
It's been healing for me. I mean, I think the more I talk about it, then I heal just a little bit more.
Mm.
So thank you for having me, Kirsten. I appreciate it.
Thanks everybody who came for the episode today. Please, we can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you in the comments below. Let us know what you related with, what came up for you, and just any thoughts that you have based upon what we talked about or anything on your heart about leaving Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.